Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another webinar with Updog, UAVs for Payload Delivery. My name is Paul Wagner, coordinating, and we're joined by Matiko Machage and Joseph McCord with JSI. Before we introduce, just wanted to kind of run through a little bit more of the flow of the webinar in case you haven't joined us previously. I ask that you hold your questions until the end. We will have 15 to 20 minutes at the end to have discussion and questions. However, if you do have a question during the presentation, please feel free to type it into the chat box. I just ask you add your name and who you're with, just so we know who's asking the question. So yeah, it'll be about 35 minutes or so of presenting, and then we'll open it up to questions and discussion afterwards. So thank you all. Again, we're joined by Matiko and Joe from JSI. They're both working in supply chain management. I'll have them introduce themselves briefly and the tool as well, and then they'll get started. So Matiko and Joe, I'll hand it over to you. Just make sure you're unmuted. I think I muted you before.
Thanks, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining in this webinar. My name is Matiko Machage. I'm currently working as in Supply Tanzania Country Team Lead. I've been working in public health supply chain for over 10 years, and I have a huge passion on the use of technology in improving supply chain. I'll now let my colleague Joe also to introduce himself, and then we can start.
Thanks, Matiko. Hey, everyone. This is Joe McCord. I'm a supply chain technical advisor with JSI's Center for Health Logistics, and I'm based in DC.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So I'm going to share my screen, and if anyone will have some challenges, you can say. If you're all able to see my screen, you'll also let me know.
Yep, just came in. Looks good.
Thanks. Okay, so we'll share with you the tool for determining the cost-effective use cases for AAV. But before going into that, I would like to share with you, just take a minute to share with you who we are. In Supply Health is an independent supply chain advisory firm affiliated with JSI, and it's based in East Africa. We have offices in Nairobi, Kenya, and office in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Our advisors, they are all based here in the region. They've been working here for quite some time. They have long-standing relationship and networks, and they really understand the context. And we do work closely with our clients to pioneer new and innovative solution to improve public health supply chain and health outcomes. I will also share with you our experiences in implementation of autonomous aerial vehicles. We have supported stakeholders and community engagements and sensitization to facilitate buy-in, acceptability, and smooth autonomous aerial systems deployments. We have also experience in integrating autonomous aerial systems operations holistically with supply chain. This include systems to capture AAS-related supply chain data with the existing electronic logistics management information system or other system, and also interoperability and the complementarity within existing transport, inventory, and the management system. We have also experience in supporting the creation and the effectiveness of steering committees for coordinating key stakeholders during deployments, sharing updates, challenges, and having stakeholders' inputs. And we also have experience in conducting modeling and analysis, like the one that we'll be sharing soon, on cost benefits for different use cases. And lastly, also experience in identifying general and the contextual risks in AA's implementation and the planning. So going back now to the tool, our outline will share with you the background to the tool, purpose, and I will let my colleague Joe take you through the tool with the examples, and then we'll leave time for question and answer. And lastly, we'll check opportunities for collaboration and testing the tool further. So how did this come up, the background? We all know that the use of drones or autonomous aerial vehicles and system as a new option for last mile delivery of public health commodities has been generating increasing interest. However, there are also many questions on how best to use drones, what cost is involved, or it is there compared with other options, and how they operate, maintain, how to integrate them with the existing system. So there's been so many questions around this area. And for many public health systems, the decision is not like whether to use or not use at all, but rather how to use them cost effectively within an integrated and networked set of transportation resources. So based on those questions, we embarked on analysis to try to get some answers together with Lamasoft and Nico's group. We developed the white paper called What Should You Deliver by Unmanned Aerial System. And in this, we undertook a cost effectiveness analysis to compare various transport options for a variety of delivery categories using unmanned aerial systems against well-managed traditional modes of last mile delivery. We used 12 months of data from 3 countries to define 5 use cases, and also drew from characteristics of specific location as well to trying to also look at the effect of geography. And one of the major findings showed that autonomous aerial system cost effectiveness is driven by the number of flights per year, and increasing flight numbers is dependent on facility density within the autonomous aerial system range area. And of course, there are other factors there, like the type of autonomous aerial vehicle that is being in use and the likes. But in general, one of the output from this analysis was the tool, a spreadsheet, which aimed at helping countries input their own data to inform their decisions on cost effectiveness. And if you haven't come across this white paper, you can easily get it on JSI website. If you go to that website and search it, it will pop up. So the tool, the original tool, we have adapted it to make it user-friendly. And this current version includes some updated information that we got from some manufacturers. And we target country or program staff with preliminary interest in autonomous aerial vehicles adoption and have access to basic last mile delivery data and assumptions. We think they can be able to use the tool. And the aim is to inform program or countries' decisions and interest in using autonomous aerial systems by identifying benefits based on the use cases that they want to try or apply. And also the tool allow simulation around different geographic area, health product category, or health product that they want to use or they'll be used in delivery, and also AAV model or type. But overall, the tool will enable to provide insights on best fit for local context or application, what type of AAVs to use, which use cases might be a good or right fit for that local context. Now moving on, I will pass over to my colleague, Joe, to take you through the tool. So Joe, you want to share your screen or should I be?
Thank you, Matiko. Let me do that. Hey again, everyone. This is Joe. Thanks, Matiko and Paul, for hosting us. So just by way of overview of this tool, it's an Excel spreadsheet. There's no macros in it. I believe Paul shared a copy of the spreadsheet in advance of this meeting through one of his emails. As Matiko mentioned, it's intended to be a user-friendly tool, and part of that includes inclusion of drop-down menus to select different options, pop-ups that give you definitions of assumptions that are being looked for by the tool. Ultimately, the tool is intended for simulation, so trial and error to help you get a better sense of how AAVs could fit into a particular last mile delivery context. So this diagram in the middle of this slide lays out the inputs and the outputs of the tool. So on the left-hand side, there are user-defined inputs that have to be entered or selected by the user. These cover the geography that you're looking to implement AAVs within, as well as the products that you're looking to have the AAVs actually carry. It includes making selections around the particular type of AAV that you might want to use, as well as type of land transport for comparison. There are also default inputs, or kind of static inputs, around the particular specs of AAVs and land transportation, as well as volumes and weights and values of particular product groups. And then also default assumptions on facility density that you can choose within. So those inputs come together to help produce intermediate calculations. These are essentially getting up to calculating the number of flights and the number of kilometers. And then these help produce the primary results of the tool, which cover total last mile costs for both land and AAV delivered, which include the direct transport costs, both variable and fixed, as well as holding costs of the product. It also covers the cost per kilometer per the number of AAV flights, and it also produces an estimated patient days of stockouts. So as we put this tool together, we assume that there are three what we call use modes, which are what we assume to be the primary lines of inquiry around conducting this kind of simulation. So this includes comparing the cost effects of changing delivery frequency by introducing AAVs. So going from, for example, monthly land-based delivery to weekly AAV delivery, for example. Potentially it includes comparing the effect of replenishing stockouts by AAV, so just having the AAVs transport products to relieve stockouts at a facility and not provide the full routine inventory. And also, we expect the tool can be used to help understand the cost effect of using AAVs to specifically deliver items that might be stocked at a different location. So for example, an emergency or long tail SKU that could simulate not being stocked at the SDP, but instead having it brought on demand by AAV. So some assumptions, some limitations. The assumptions data that built into the tool, particularly for specs around AAVs, are static. Although, of course, in reality, the specs for AAVs are updating frequently. So we'll see in the tool you can manually go in and change the specifications of different types of AAVs. Although the tool is not going to do that automatically. And then the tool is only really looking at transport costs and not other logistics objectives such as speed and responsiveness. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the tool itself. So as we mentioned, the tool is an Excel spreadsheet. It includes inputs that have to be entered across different sheets or tabs, which you can see on the bottom. The first sheet or tab is the instructions. This is where you'll land if you open the spreadsheet. It allows you to read through the instructions that we provided, include the background, a lot of which Matika went through. And also, if you want, you can use this area to navigate between different tabs by clicking on these links. So the first input section that we mentioned is geographic inputs. Each of the different input tabs is structured similarly. We have a table with assumptions listed on the left-hand side, and then you can either make selections or enter data on the right-hand side. So for example, the first input selection that you can make is to provide a reference region for facility density. So you can click onto the drop-down and see different options that are pre-built into the tool, different geographies. The most dense locations are up at the top, and the least dense are down here at the bottom. In general, in the input section and the green unbolded areas, you can make entries, and then calculations or pre-built data are in the orange bolded cells. So right now we can see that the facility density that we've selected is 46 facilities per 10,000 kilometers. But if we want to override that, we can click in this cell above and enter data that way. You've also probably noticed that when you click into individual entry cells, a pop-up comes up which lets you know what exactly is being looked for in that cell. We have data entry for reference catchment population, percent of the target region, which is land versus water, road circuity factor, and then percentage of facilities which become inaccessible, potentially due to seasonal rains, for example, and then the average percent of the year that these facilities are inaccessible. So then we can move over to product inputs. So again, here we are defining the products that are actually going to be carried by our AAVs. Again, we can pull from some reference data, choose different example product groups. And in this case, it provides the reference volume to be delivered, weight, value, and demand variability. But again, you can override these if you have more specific data. So you can see that being overridden here. Also here, you can specify the inventory holding cost, cross-opportunity cost, storage, and expiry. But the suggested default for all of these is 12%. And then you can also enter a desired service level. And then lastly, on the user-defined inputs, we have transport inputs. We'll select a point of reference for land transport. This again is bringing up specifications on cost per kilometer, capacity. But then we also want to specify the number of deliveries per year, space utilization, and then number of facilities reached in a day. We'll also choose a specific AAV model to include. This again pulls from a set of reference specs for range, payload, number of stops, and then we'll enter the AAV pickup and delivery frequency, before delivery frequency. As I mentioned, one of the ways you can use the tool is to model use of AAVs to specifically make deliveries to relieve stockouts. And this is where you let the tool know whether that's what you want to do. We're going to say, no, we don't want AAVs to only top up stockouts. But if you are using that mode, you can use this area to enter some information regarding the stockout. So once you've entered all that data, you can proceed to the results tab. So we have our kind of top line results up here in the top middle. Those cover transport costs for land-based delivery, transport costs for the AAVs, comparison of those costs, and then an estimate of patient days stocked out. So one limitation, this estimate of patient days stocked out is certainly not, there's probably a lot of issues with it. It's essentially an estimate. And then as you scroll down, you can see some of the intermediate calculations that go into producing those total costs. And if you're interested, you can see exactly how these calculations are produced by clicking into these guys. Also on the results tab, there's an automatically updated chart here, which shows the cost per kilometer for AAVs and land transport. And it's the x-axis here is the number of flights per year for the AAVs. So you can also take a look at the built-in assumptions. These tabs that go on beyond the results tab. We have the specs for different AAV models, land transport models, the product group specifications, and facility density assumptions. So the tool pulls from these, and they're not automatically updated. But if you have specific information, specific ways that you want to update these, you can do that here. So that is an overview of the tool. And at this point, I'm going to go through a quick example of using it. So we'll start on Geographic Inputs tab. To choose middle of the road density examples. Yeah, good. Going to leave these assumptions. And then maybe in this area, they're more affected by seasonal rains. So we'll say 20% of facilities are affected, and they're affected 25% of the year. Then we'll go into products. And I'm going to start with vaccines. I'm going to keep the specifications that are in here. And also keep the holding cost assumptions. Maybe I'll increase service level to 96%. Then on the transport input side, I'm going to say that a Land Cruiser is our point of comparison. And that it makes monthly deliveries. 80% utilization is fine, and 5 facilities a day is fine. So maybe I want to model small fixed wing. And for the purpose of this example, I'm going to start by giving it the same delivery frequency as the Land Cruiser. And I'm going to leave this as no. So now we can see our total land-based transport costs, total AAV transport costs, which come out a little higher than the land-based transport. And in terms of stockouts, there's the same amount of stockouts that occur under this approach between the two modes. So let's see what happens when we have our UAVs make more frequent deliveries. If they can. So maybe see what happens if they make weekly deliveries. So now the costs, AAV costs have gone up, but only slightly. And now there's a benefit in terms of reduced stockouts because these deliveries are happening more often under AAVs. But we originally chose a kind of average facility density profile. Let's see the effect of using a more dense location. So now, because the area targeted for delivery is more dense, we're able to get better utilization out of our AAVs, and costs have increased for both land and AAV transport because there are a lot more facilities and a lot more volume being delivered. But now we continue to get the reduced stockout benefits with the AAVs and actually a little bit of a cost savings. So let's see what the effect of increasing the volume would be. We had vaccines with 70 liters per facility per year. If we jump to malaria, which is a much bigger volume, we can now see that AAV costs have jumped drastically. In this case, because we're still using small fixed wing, and in this dense location delivering malaria commodities, there's now a lot of flights happening and a lot of kilometers being generated. So now there's still the reduced stockout benefit, but now costs of the AAVs are much higher. But maybe we can help that by taking a look at a larger image. So now we've preserved those stockout benefits in a dense location with a lot of volume being delivered, and now there's only there's a much reduced cost penalty for using AAVs. So that is an overview of the tool. It's essentially how we anticipated it being used, essentially for trial and error around seeing what context best fit introduction of a particular AAV model. So I'm going to turn it over to Q&A, but right before we do that, we did want to mention that as part of sharing this tool, we're particularly interested in getting more feedback on it. So Paul shared around a copy of the tool, and we're looking for folks in the field to help us find ways to strengthen the tool, seeing how it fits to their processes. So if you are interested, of course, let us know. You can reach us at insupply@jsi.com. And now I think we'll turn it over to Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Joe and Matiko. That's really amazing. This tool is really impressive. We already have quite a few questions in the chat box that we'll walk through. But just a precursor, I will be sharing a copy of this recording. And then for Joe and Matiko, I'll also be in that same email. I'll let people know about this offer for collaboration with you guys. All right, so jump into questions. First one was from Sarah De La Rosa, ISG coordinator. She says, how many manufacturers have been involved?
Okay, if I may start, and then probably Joe, you can chime in. And thanks, Sid, for also replying some of the question in the chat, but you can also chime in. For the previous tool, the original one, as Sid mentioned in the chat box, we got that information from the research and some of the previous work done. But at the current version that we have updated, we got some information from one manufacturer. One of the challenges is getting the cost information from manufacturers. So it's a bit challenging, but I think if we are able to get that cost, we can easily update the tool and make it have more realistic assumptions. Joe, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, and actually just before I do, I just wanted to give a shout out to Sid at LlamaSoft. He built the kind of original version of this tool as part of the white paper. So thanks, Sid, for, sounds like you've been answering some of the questions. And yeah, I think, so you can take a look at the particular models and specifications that have been included in the tool by going to that AAV assumption tab. I think there are about 8 particular models that are included.
Cool. Next question is from Hitesh from ISG also. Asks, is the instrument capable of controlling for input variables so that we know which input or combination thereof is a significant predictor of the supply chain outcomes we are intending to measure? If no, any thoughts on how to address? And then Sid from LlamaSoft follows up and says, hi, Hitesh. Responding to your question, this tool is a direct calculator. As such, it is deterministic. The same inputs will always lead to the same outputs. To see which input drives the output of interest, the best approach would be to only change one input at a time. Leave all the other cells with the same values. Then you'll just see the effect on the outputs of changing one input variable. Hope this helps. Joe Matiko, any additions or anything else on that?
Yeah, thanks, Sid. That is about what I would say as well. Yeah, so that's some possibly limitation of the tool. What you might end up doing is making one particular change and then copying and pasting the results out into a different spreadsheet and kind of keeping track of the changes that you're making that way.
Okay, next question is from Marga from FHI 360. She asks, is there a plan to continuously update the tool, for example, to account for how quickly the distance and payload of AAVs is changing?
So I think more information, then the more data we can get, we'll be able to update the tool. And if we have more people using the tool and getting that feedback and information, it can help to update the tool. And I think that's why we seek to collaborate with whoever is deploying this technology and learn more, and especially on the cost of AAVs and other cost of operation, and update the tool accordingly.
Okay. Next question is from Caleb, also from FHI 360. He says, this tool looks amazing. You've really done a great deal of work. Who is your intended audience, and how do you foresee them being able to answer the inputs? Some of them are a bit complicated to answer. Like, how would they determine what geographic area is most representative of their area? Sid does follow up again and says, thanks, Caleb. For the inputs, for example, facility density, they can choose a reference area or manually enter their own for their area. So they could just see how many facilities they have in their area and look up Google to see square kilometers, enter the value in the manual override option. I agree some other inputs require some guidance for interpretation. Countries can consult with JSI or LLamasoft if they wish to get guidance on how best to interpret inputs, outputs. Thanks, Sid. Any additions on that, Matiko or Joe?
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I definitely agree with that that comment that some of these assumptions the tool is asking for are definitely not ones that people typically have on hand. And for that reason, we, where we could, in the pop-ups that come in to those input areas, we gave recommendations for figures to use if you didn't have a locally specific one.
Yeah, and just to add also, if they can go to the tab where there is a geographic assumption, I think they'll be able to see all the assumption that has been used, all the geographies, and from there they can easily compare their area and the area which are already inbuilt in, yeah, there in the tool.
Okay. Next question is from Kevin Erico of Deloitte. He says, apologies if this was already covered, but where did you get the data to guide your assumptions? I think Sid followed up on that too. Yep, he says, responding to Kevin, data inputs for land info was obtained from 3 countries, actual product data, stockout data, etc., for 2 years to guide assumptions. Land transport inputs were obtained from LLamasoft projects and public health systems in Africa and benchmarked against available academic studies. For example, Riders for Health. AAV inputs were obtained from speaking with manufacturers. JSI can say more about numbers of manufacturers and search of publicly available posted specs online. Matiko, Joe?
I don't have anything to add. Thanks, Sid.
Yeah, so for me, I think Sid mentioned everything, but just to highlight, we had 3 African countries, sub-Saharan countries. We used their data to make those assumptions, especially on product categories and use cases.
Okay. Caleb follows up again with another question and says, also, are these assumptions based on hiring a logistics company to fly the drones or the user, for example, Ministry of Health, the health program, buying and operating the drone?
I would say that the costs are not inclusive of any extra service provider costs. It's specifically related to the operation of the hardware itself.
Okay. We Robotics, I'm assuming that's Patrick, but I'm not sure. He says, very nicely done. We had just started creating our own cost estimate calculator for cargo drones using Excel last week. We already have one for drone mapping projects. Many thanks for producing this detailed cost estimate calculator. We will definitely lean on this and share with the Flying Labs network. Are you thinking of hosting this calculator as an interactive website?
Yo, you want to go first, though?
Yeah, I don't believe so, but I'm not sure. Matiko, have you heard anything about that?
No, not yet. I think for us, as we've mentioned, this tool is available. They can have it and play around and if there is any challenge that they have, we can work together to help them to interpret or use the tool further or update the tool further.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say at this point, I mean, it's you guys are our first kind of external users on this, so any feedback that you guys can provide will be incorporated, and then if it seems like it's worth hosting online, then we can consider that option too.
Great. Okay, next question is from Jeff Taylor from Event 38 Unmanned Systems. He says, could you share the link to download the tool again? Yes, Jeff, we'll be sharing a recording of this webinar along with the tool. So just if you're not, anyone who's on this call, if you're not already a part of the UpDog working group, if you could just contact me either in this chat box or other, and I can add you to that just to make sure you get the recording and the tool again. Sid followed up with Sarah. We answered that question. Then she says, your AAV assumptions cover 7 different types of aircraft, so there is a likely overestimate of cost assumed in there. And these, particularly the cost per flight, seem very high. Sid says, Sarah, you can see the inputs and we're happy to update. They're all broken down in components. Thanks for the feedback that they look high, well noted. A big driver will be number of flights per year. The cost per flights updates as your specified use case does more flights per year. Play with it and hope that reveals more. Okay, looking for more questions here. Marga again, Patrick's comments brings up an important point. We're all working on separate tools. I really like how JSI asks for others to help test and improve this tool. It's often hard to collaborate in the area of tight funding, but I really value this group and the spirit it promotes. Let's try to minimize redundancy and build on each other's work. Can we share this tool? Yes, we will do that. So, all right, thanks everyone. Let's open this up. If you want to just either add a comment or another question, feel free to unmute yourself. And we've got another 15 minutes still before the hour is done. So we'll just open it up if there's anyone else who wants to jump in. And of course, I'll keep monitoring the chat box.
Hi, this is Marga. Thank you again for this great presentation. I just wanted to clarify my question about sharing the tool. Is this tool in a format where you're ready for us to share it externally? Can we cite it? Can we provide the link in things that we're working on?
Yes, sure, Marga, you can do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing we ask is that you provide any feedback that you come up with.
All right, see you, Sid. Thanks so much. If anyone else has any questions, we'll just leave this open for another minute. Otherwise, thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you especially to Matiko and Joe for presenting. We will be sharing a copy of this recording and the tool again to the mailing list. So if you are not on the mailing list, please just drop your email into the chat box and I'll follow up with you. Let's see. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's it, guys. Everyone. So have a great day wherever you are. Good morning, good evening. And thank you.
Thanks everyone.